Hello fellow cultivators, welcome to another complete build guide for Tail Immortal, and this video will be talking about water build. And in general, I think water build is probably the best suitable spiritual routes for new players, both in general for this game and also for higher difficulties such as Chaos. And there are a few different reasons. So first, with this the spiritual torrent, spiritual skill, you can go through your early game very easily. This is probably one of the best martial/spiritual skills, so LMB skills in the early game. And once you come to the middle game where you can start to make the build work, first of all, water have two things. Like one is freeze. You can freeze enemy, which means you are extremely safe. The second, you got infinite MP. So mana, basically you don't need to care about your mana issues. So both of these combined together make your journey very safe and comfortable. Yeah, I don't know comfortable if it's the correct word for it, but in Chinese just call it anyi or something like that. So yeah, and once you reach Reborn, then you might see some enemies with that you cannot be controlled, but which can be a bit of problem. But around that time, I think you can already have many enough options to deal with enemies, especially once you get endgame. The few tradition set also makes you extremely powerful as well, and throughout your journey you are just very safe and very comfortable. You might feel like sometimes that you are lack of damage, but that can be always solved by equipping a fire motion skill with fire secret manual. I know some people don't like it, but even for aesthetic wise, a Song of Ice and Fire still sounds pretty good, right? Anyway, so in this video we'll start talking first, introduce what are the few different martial spiritual skills, then we'll talk about special skills and the two mechanisms, freeze and energy surge, and also one common mechanism which is Energ Pond, and then we'll just talk about, I guess, ultimate first, and then we'll talk about motion skill as well as mind skills. So yeah, bear with me, let's start. Well, first for martial skills, you got again 3 martial skills just like every single other element. The number one is spiritual water, and this one is pretty bad in early game because it have very long cooldown, and also the shooting out number of the projectiles is not that high. But once you go to middle to late game, this just becomes the best, and the damage is way much higher than the other two. Like, I know everyone loves the water beam spiritual torrent, but at late game, really, spiritual water is just simply much better, both in terms of damage and also easier for you to apply the buff and debuff because it's a multiple projectile LMB. It is as simple as that. And yeah, you definitely want the cooldown reduction for this one because the original cooldown, the base cooldown is pretty long. And yeah, also this means that you need to, because the way this works is you shoot out a projectile from yourself and as a corn shape to the outside, things like this, which means you want to stay really close to the enemy so that all the projectiles can hit the enemy. If you're more further away, some of them will never hit the enemy, right? And usually this means that you are not that safe, especially in early game. That's why you don't use it in early game. But in late game, especially for water view, you can freeze the enemy. The enemy is almost freezed all the time, so what's the point? I mean, how does it matter? I can always keep close and deal damage to them. So yeah, once you come to middle to late game, definitely use spiritual water. Well, the second spiritual skill, which is your guys' favorite, spiritual torrent, and yeah, indeed it is really good one. So basically you shoot out one water beam, you can just move your mouse and it will shoot out one. In my case, because I'm transcendent, I'm shooting out 2 water beams, but it doesn't matter. Again, just watch this, claim this again and again, that do not think that I'm using a transcendent character, so everything that's talking this video can be only done in transcendent. Come on, you can shoot out a water beam as early as chi refining, and it's the best thing you can do in chi refining. You just cannot shoot out 2, that's all. And especially, you guys know that water burst is one Destiny I really recommend, that whenever you see it, you take it. And that is basically just spiritual torrent. It's just to give you another water beam, and it's just so good in many different ways. And just look at this. So yeah, especially in early game, this thing is probably your best spiritual skill, and you have to just to continuously press down your mouse button. Oh, I forgot to mention, for spiritual torrent, the reason why I recommend it in the early game, of course, is the long range thing, so that you can keep a safe distance against the enemy, right? But also, even in late game, sometimes there are some enemies that you do not want to keep very close to them. For example, a certain wood spirit or wood god, which is really annoying to deal with at close range battles. Then if you have a long distance spiritual skill like this, the torrent, then it's very good to deal with those. So the main reason you don't want to use it in late game because there's no way to improve its cooldown because it's a continuous skill. So all your LMB cooldown reduction modifier doesn't really work here, and also it's just one single target. So late game it's just falling. The damage is falls pretty low. However, there is indeed a tradition set which buffs it, and I can tell you that it does not really buff it that well. So it's still much worse than Spiritual Water, but if you are against some enemies that you definitely don't want to get close to them, use Spiritual Torrent. The next one is Ice Blast, and unfortunately this is one of, maybe not even one of, the worst IOMB skill in the entire game, and the main reason is because it's a charge skill, which means you have to charge it for 0.5 seconds in order for it to work. Charge skill for RMB, so the special skill is okay, but for LMB, this is just way too slow. And because during the charge, you can't even move that properly, which means you are in a very, very awkward position. Before we go deeper into the different special skills, we want to first talk about the buff and debuffs. And of course, this is something I said every single time, that special skills always works with the buff or debuff that martial skills applies. And always there are three in this case, Frost Blast, Versicled Icicle, Vesseled Icicle, and Frost Spirit Blast. These three work with the debuff, which is called Frost, and the other three, Icy Aura, Frostbrand, and Soulreaper, works with the buff, which is Energy Surge. So your martial skill can either apply Energy Surge to yourself, which is buff, or apply Frost, which is debuff to the enemy. And the effect of Energy Surge, which is just restore energy, which is ignorable, and the effect of Frost itself is just reduce enemies' targets, agility, and attack speed, which is actually quite good, not ignorable. But the main point is, for both of cases, are when you use special skill, you can detonate them and introduce a new effect. And they are quite connected to the buff or debuff themselves. For example, for Frost, the debuff, when you detonate them, you can freeze the enemy for these three. And for the buff, Energy Surge, when you detonate them, you can increase your maximum MP and also increase your MP, so you recover MP. Basically you got infinite MP if you use them correctly. So again, it's a much better version of Energy Surge, and that's just, both of these effects are really good, right? Like infinite MP, really comfortable, freeze the enemy so that they cannot fight back, really comfortable. And that's why I think water build is really good. And also, there are a few special skills. So these two, Versicled Icicle, Vesseled Icicle. I can't say this thing. It's like Pop Icicle, right? Something Basicle. And Frostbrand. Both these two can actually allows you to have both effects. Freeze the enemy and also infinite MP. So these two are the best. But we will talk a bit later, a bit later once we introduce all of them. And before we do that, I don't want to showcase this Frost Blast because this is a really simple one. This is the only one which is different from all the other five, because all the other five are charged skills. We'll talk about how the charge mechanism works a bit later, but this one is the only one which is not charged, okay? And it's just a simple RMB. You press the button and it blasts, and it will have the chance to freeze the enemy because it's a frost type of RMB, but that's basically it. So yeah, usually I don't like using this, but this is the first one you will learn. So yeah. So instead of using Icy Aura, I will now talk about Vesseled Icicle, because this again is a skill which is working with Frost. But we will also use this as the example to talk about charge skill mechanism as well as Energy Pond. So what does charge skill do? So basically, if you directly use this special skill like press down button and do nothing, it will just generate a little bit of ice around you, and that's because you are supposed to press down the mouse button and hold it to charge a skill like this until it fulfill the bar, and it will be much bigger range, much higher damage, and also it will generate this energy pond beneath you. So when you put your mouse on the skill on the right side, you can see how charge skill works. So it's basically what I said just now, but also it tells you what is energy pond is. So energy pond, let me just use it again so that we can have the energy pond again. This blue thing beneath you, when you walk inside and outside, they are different. So inside this energy pond, the power of both your spiritual skills and special skills are higher, so 50% higher, which means you deal 50% more damage. And also your skill charging time is less, so instead of charging like really long, inside this, let me just refresh my thing. You see that the charging speed is much faster when I'm inside this energy pond, and that's the best part about it. So also it will have higher damage. So this thing are good, but also it have a bad problem, so-called bad, because now you consume more energy to cast skills, which means not only your special skill will cost more energy, but even your martial skill or like spiritual skill will cost more energy. So okay, let me just click it to get rid of this, because this is just a reborn bird effect, which is always affecting me talking about things. So now let's use this. And as of now, I'm not doing anything. You can see that my MP is actually reducing, right? But now it's increasing back. Now, okay, every time I use my MP, you can see it's reducing and increasing again. So the reason why it's reducing because I'm standing inside the energy pond, and now I'm not standing inside the energy pond. You don't see it reducing. So inside energy pond, even using your special skills will cost you MP, which usually you think about is a bad thing. However, the good thing part about this is that because when you are using the spiritual skill, you're costing MP, and you can see that there is a shield generated around me because I'm continuously costing MP, which means it works with my shield guide. Every time I cost MP, I generate a shield around me. So as long as I'm inside the energy pond, as long as I am attacking, and now I'm not inside the energy pond, the shield is not generated. You can see that. As long as I'm attacking, I have a shield always around me, and because I can, use the spiritual skill much more frequently compared to every other skill, so I have much higher frequency to apply a shield on me, so which makes me even safer. Like even without the freeze the enemy. Let's say if I'm not using a whistled Icicle, I'm using something else with energy pond, with energy surge, that do not freeze enemy, but as long as I'm inside energy pond, I can get the shield around me, which is also makes me really safe. Now, this is just general about charge skills and energy pond. Now let's see what exactly special skill do. First of all, it's a charge skill. As you can see, you already see that it basically shoots out a big ice to the enemy. It's really long range, so it probably worked really well with long range LMB. But also, every time you can detonate the frost, and each stack of frost detonated, you got 18% chance to freeze the enemy. That's a 6 sub skill here. Yeah, you need to have sub skill to properly freeze the enemy. If you're wondering why does my special skill didn't freeze, maybe you did not unlock all the sub skills. And also, after casting this skill, you can deal 30% damage to any enemy which are frozen, which is great. And finally, if this skill casted when there's only one enemy, for the next 11.2 seconds, this is a 10 sub skill here, every time a martial skill hits enemy, it has 40% chance to freeze. And that is even better, right? So now enemy is frozen, and now just because my martial skill is hitting the enemy, it got frozen as well. So like this. I'm not using my RMB, I'm just using my LMB, and this still frees the enemy. So this guarantees you to freeze the enemy. Like when I use my special skill, the enemy do not get frozen because that time it's not. Let's just do it. Now I'm using this, it's frozen. So this is martial skill freezing the enemy, so it just makes the enemy even have a higher chance to freeze, even though your RMB might be in cooldown, but as long as you are attacking with your LMB, you are freezing the enemy. So these two things, the detonation of frost, inflict freeze, as well as later on, every time your spiritual skill hits the enemy, its inflict freeze are common for all the 3 special skills that you work with Frost. So it's the same thing for this one, it's the same thing for the other 2 as well. But one thing good about this special skill is the last one. If this skill is casted when there's at least 8 stack Frost, it increases maximum energy as well. So yeah, it is a special skill works with Frost, but also give you MP. So really good. Now Frostbrand Blast. This one is also a charge skill, but it's like this, okay? It will create a blast in the target location and then have the same thing next time. Whenever I use my martial / spiritual skill, it will freeze the enemy. Again, I think I didn't mention, but yeah, everywhere in this game, when it says martial, it's the same thing as spiritual, apart from in those 2 rare destinies. I mean, you literally see it works, even though it's written that it's written martial here. So yeah, it's the same thing, and it's almost the same as the previous one, the Vessel Icicle. You can even see that when it's cast, when there are 8 stack Frost, your maximum energy will increase, right? Now you can see that there are 16 stocks, and when I cast it, no, it does not increase. So this sub skill does not work. It's a bug. So, and because of this bug, this one is not as good as Vessel Icicle. Vessel Icicle gives you both freezing as well as MP recovery. This one only freeze enemy, no MP recovery. So you are still bothered by MP problem. However, if you have the correct water secret manual, every time you freeze enemy, you do get MP recovery, and there are other ways to recover MP as well, so it might not be as big a problem. In general, every single water build, you don't really have much MP problem. This bug is just so frustrating. Now let's shift to the 3 special skills that work with energy surge. First one, Icy Aura. It is also a charge skill, and even though it does not say anything about Energy Pond, it works with Energy Pond. It's the same thing. You see the Energy Pond around me? Yeah, that's how it works. It does not say, but every single charge skill, RMP skills, will give you the Energy Pond. I know there's a charge skill for spiritual skills, Ice Blast. So one does not give you the blast. It's weird, it is what it is. And yeah, good thing about these 3 special skills, if you cast this thing, with a lot of energy surge, you consume them, you will increase your energy. But one better thing about this Icy Aura, one is that if this casted when there's only 1 enemy, you instantly receive 7 stack energy surge. So you don't. That's why you see my maximum energy is higher, even though I didn't do much attacks to give myself energy surge, because every time I use this, I get 7 energy thing, and because of that, it will detonate those 7 and give me more maximum energy. That's just like, see, do it again, and you see the maximum energy now at 550k. So you don't even need to use the same, spiritual skill to give you this thing. So that's one thing really good about this one. And also, upon hitting the enemy, every Icy Aura has 30% chance to deal more water damage, and basically it has better damage. And if you cast this thing with more than 6 stack energy surge, or area of effect will be expanded. And the best part about this is actually in the game, because one of the tradition effect makes this thing much better. So we'll talk about this once we go to the tradition effect. Like in early game, this thing is not that great, because first of all, you probably don't really have that much stacks of energy surge, so you just won't get enough MP back. And also, this thing does not really have the thing to freeze the enemy, so yeah, it's not that safe. And here we go. The second special skill, which works with energy surge, but also can freeze the enemy, Frostbrand. And this is basically the skill I do recommend to every single new player playing water build, or in general new. I mean, there is one video in my channel called Another Easiest Build in this game. It is talking about Frostbrand. And you might be asking, even Vessel Icicle have, both recover MP and freeze enemy, why not that? Because that one, if you want to recover MP, you need 8 stacks of 8 stacks of Frost, which is not that big deal if you know how to build it up, but for new players, they might not know how to get 8 stacks maximum stack. But Frostbrand, not only it had all the energy surge thing, but also it's 10th sub-skill. Every time Ice Storm deals damage to the enemy, it has 12% chance to inflict freeze. No condition required. It just continues freeze the enemy itself. See? It got frozen. And second thing is, the cooldown is really short. And the reason why is because if this skill was casted when it's only one enemy, the cooldown minus 4 seconds. The 6th sub-skill here. This also means that, in a way, you can reach 0 cooldown special skill with this if you build it with blood energy, but you know, it's not really worth it, right? For water build, you have so many ways to recover MP, and this is still a charged skill, so I don't think it's worth it to use, you know, all the stuff like blood energy and 0 cooldown. However, in general, this thing was really good because it frees the enemy all the time, have very short cooldown, and also if you cast this thing with enough energy surge, you got MP recovery. But you might think that it does not really last that long, and that's only because I am not casting it with enough energy surge on myself. So there's one sub skill that when you cast it with 3 stack energy surge, it will increase 4 seconds of duration. So in this case, it will last much longer, and for it end, you can already cast it again. You got 2 and even more. So yeah, even without doing any tricks, you know, like refreshing cooldown stuff, you got multiple Ice Frost over there and keep on freezing the enemy and doing damage. It's just really convenient. So yeah, I do recommend this to every single new player. It's one of the best special skills. Okay, the last special skill, Soulreaper, again works with energy surge. That type of thing, every time you consume energy surge, it recovers your, give you maximum MP. So that is good, but also, if you have 5 stacks of energy surge, it will make the enemy losing MP. You absorb the MP from the enemy. Looks very good. You can almost think about, can I even use this thing with a finger divine power so that I can attack increase, because the enemy were losing MP, right? It's really slow. So yeah, it does not really work that well. I can do it. I've tried. It doesn't really work that well. So, and this thing in general have very low damage, and yeah, it just doesn't really work that good. So sadly, that's how it is. Let me just try again. And effect also is not that clear, right? You can just see it get some damage out, but yeah, I don't think this thing is useful at all. Well, since we are here, let's talk about motion skill. Water motion skill is one of the best water motion skills in the game, mainly because it will generate a phantom for you. So when I use motion skill, forget about the tiger, that's Lu. So this is the phantom I generated. It will automatically do damage to the enemy. It will use the same LMB skill, and that also means that it can apply often debuff itself. So it's a very good way to apply debuff if you're using a spiritual skill which applies debuff to the enemy. But also, you can have the sub skills to decrease the damage taken, because originally you will take 5 times damage, so it's very easy to break. But the sub skill makes it minus 300%, so only takes 2 times damage, increase duration, and also makes this cooldown reduction of spiritual skills, so it just makes it attack faster. So yeah, there are all these things, but also there is also the increased damage. And one great thing about this is actually not itself, but you have to combine this with the sub skill in Sutra. Okay, I'm talking about Sutra, but it's of course guide. Everything about MP is guide. I just use the wrong word all the time. So look at the 7th sub-skill. When your phantom disappears, your energy will be restored. So that's one great thing. It will restore enemy, but also because the phantom counts as an ally. So you can have the 8th one. Every time an ally dies, your energy will be restored. And also the last one, there are 4 allies on the ground, your energy will be restored. So just by the Phantom from your motion skill and a good guide which gives you all this enemy energy restore, you got infinite mana again, even if you are not using a special skill which works with energy surge. Let's say I'm using Vertigo Icicle or Frost Spirit Blast. I do not have the maximum MP increase, but just with the motion skill thing and a good guide, I got a lot of MP recovery. And also, I think everyone should know this already, but the 11 sub-skill for every single one energy use cut skills, you receive a shield. That is in general the most important sub-skill in any guide, in any build. And it is that thing which allows you to generate a shield every time you use spiritual skill to attack, as long as you stand inside the energy pond. So yeah, don't forget about that. And since we are at the mana skills, let's talk about the 3 special mana skills here. Yeah, okay, before that, in Sutra, because all your Phantom counts at friendly units, so if you have things like when your friendly units die, ally die, you recover HP, yeah, definitely good. Now, go back to the proper mastery, the 3 special skills. Water mastery have this, apart from the general cooldown reduction ones, it also have this one special sub-skill, which is 7th one. For every 39 maximum energy points, your defense will be increased by 1, up to 1200 in Transcendent. But this gives you higher defense than other build usually. And the thing about this, I don't know if this works. I don't know if this works in battle, because right now my maximum energy is 32,000. But in battle, is because as long as I'm using an energy surge build, my MP will increase a lot. So if this thing works in battle, then you got much higher defense. I guess it does work in battle, so then it's pretty good for your increased defense. And there is also another sub-skill to increase its attack, but I think it's not implemented into the game. Okay. However, it's the same thing that you can use Artifact Spirit. This guy called Lingge, I think you guys know about her. This talent of hers, like for every single max energy, it's not maximum energy you have, your attack will be increased by 1, maximum 1000 attack. And it looks really good, but the thing is, if you need that, right now I'm at Transcendent with almost perfect skill, mind skill, I have 30k energy, and when it's full, I got 1k attack, and Transcendent I can have 15-16k. So it's not as good as you might think it is. However, with MP water build, because you just always have a lot of MP, later you can probably reach 30k energy even without being Transcendent, because if you're using an energy surge type of RMB, you get a lot of MP in the battle, even in earlier realms. So at that time, 1000 attack will be a lot. So Lingge works really well with water, and also her another talent here. Every time you use a dash skill, the subsequent special skill deals 14% more damage. Not a lot, but your water motion skill is indeed a dash skill. So yeah, both talents works pretty well with water build. So get her. And now we just diverted out from the mind skills, but now let's look at the divine power. I'm using the sword one, that's because I haven't set. But let's look at this, the water one. So it does have this thing that water stat reach something, it will increase stuff. But it also has the thing, it will reduce the energy cost when you are inside the energy pond. So if you find that it cost me too much MP, my MP recovery cannot make it back, giving this water divine power will make you a bit better, and also it does not reduce the spiritual skill cost to 0, so that you cannot generate shield, so it's good. Yeah, but it's not that necessary, because I think if you build a water build properly, you won't have energy problem. So that's another reason why you don't really need to use water divine power. You can use the sword one later, or feast one if you are using crit build, but I don't think crit build is really suitable for water. And now let's go to security manual. So apart from the general stuff, converging between energy surge and frost, and also automatically apply energy surge and frost, and also stacks and duration of energy surge and frost, The one thing, there are two things special about water. One is the 8th one, Energy Pond damage boost plus 30%. So instead of 50% energy boost, now it's 80% energy boost. It's great. Definitely get it if you are using this. But the second one is when you have at least 4 stack energy surge, your damage taken 12%. It's better than nothing. So it looks not bad. 30% damage increase and 12% damage taken. But yeah, that's just my personal experience that in the middle journey you are always quite safe and everything. You're really lacking its actual damage. So it's probably better if you use a fire secret menu and use fire motion. Or use fire ultimate. That's just my opinion, but yeah, definitely if you want to use the water secret menu, it does give you something. Before we talk about ultimate, I think it's time we talk about transition set effect. So, because I think this is important. The one set effect which is really good is Agile Dragon. So 2 sets is when Icy Aura deals damage, the water motion skill cooldown reduced by 2 seconds. And this is the reason why in endgame, Icy Aura become the best build, because every time you deal damage with Icy Aura, you reduce your motion skill cooldown. And basically, if you're using a sword, Divine Power, every time you use motion skill, you refresh your cooldown with your special skill. So basically you are using the same thing as Water Sword instead, but it's just you are using Icy Aura instead of Shadowless Sword, and instead of detonating the bleed to reduce the motion skill cooldown, you are reducing your motion skill cooldown simply by doing damage with Icy Aura. And it's just quite nice to have it. And also with the 4th set effect, even your water clones can also cast Icy Aura. Then it's just so good because you got much more damage. So in general, this Agile Dragon managed to make your water build into a water sword build, and I really love it. I might just show you guys a battle. The time is not super impressive, but that's mainly because of the lag, I think. But yeah, there are a few things in that battle that I realized I forgot to mention, which are actually all quite important. Number 1, the charge skill can work with where is it? Spirit Fusion. So this special Spirit Fusion gives you a small 25 chance to cast 3 additional times to 4 times skills when you're using special skill, for example. And usually, if you are using continuous skill, it doesn't work, but charge skill does work. So you will see the charge skill bar close to full, and wait for like 0. something second, it will start again. It's not that obvious to see, but if you're getting used to it, you know that it works. 2, again about charge skill. If you have this energy gathering elixir, I think I mentioned this in my alchemy guide. Once you get this thing, I think starting from Soul Formation and Reborn, you use this thing, it lasts the entire battle, and basically it reduces your charging time to 0. So you don't need to charge anymore, you just need to press down your mouse button all the time, and you always got perfect charged skills. And it's really good for water special build, and I realized it's such a big mistake that I did not mention this earlier, because it's really important. Even in earlier realms, like when you are in Nathan Soul, so you can use Origin Spirit one. It does not last very long, but within a few seconds you don't need to charge your skill. It's also really helpful. And that's the second thing. And of course, the third thing is, once you get the Agile Dragon set effect, because you can refresh your RMB and motion skill just like Water Sword, which means you generate a lot of phantoms, you are doing a lot of damage, but also you are using motion skill all the time. So there are two things. One, actually I said 30, but there are two things. There's one small thing here that you might not want the blink distance, because that will just make you last longer, a little bit longer, which I myself do not like. So do not have the blink distance up skill unless you're dealing with King Luhua, which you needed to escape his motion skill seal. Why do you want to deal with the King Luhua anyway? So that's one thing. Second thing, which is probably more important, that to see that I am actually using a very different Divine Beast Souls, which is Lu. And the main thing is, every time if you can reduce your motion skill a lot, Lu can be a pretty good option, because every time you use a motion skill, you summon Lu with Phantom to deal damage to the enemy. I know you might still be thinking, because I'm using motion skill and RMB, why don't I use Jiaolong? Very valid point. Jiaolong works as good as Lu, or maybe could be even better. But don't you feel tired to use Jiaolong all the time? Sometimes using Lu will give yourself a little bit fresh experience. It's one of the few cases Lu can be useful. The other one, of course, is Water Sword. And another reason I'm using Lu is because, first of all, I am pretty safe with all the freezing and shield things, so I don't need to use Xuan I think, at least most of the time. Second thing is, I have infinite MP, so I don't need to use Goten to give me MP. So I got a free choice between Lu and Jiaolong. And if you like Jiaolong, use Jiaolong. If you like Lu, use Lu then. And about the other set, which is Stormy Sea. This is that one set I was talking about before, that it will make your Spiritual Torrent a bit better in the end game, because if you have more than 50% energy, the Spiritual Torrent will consume maximum energy per second, get enhanced penetrative missiles, deals 100% more damage. It looks like it's good, but I've tested, it's still not as good as Spiritual Water, so yeah, there's not much point to use it, unless you really love it. But in my experience, it's not as good as Spiritual Water. I mean, use it if you like. Stormy Sea afterward buffs it. The second thing is, if you have 4 set, of course, for every 1% enemy consumed, the next RMB shoots the penetrated Icicle to deal damage and freeze enemy. This is completely useless. The damage is very low, and if you're using a water build, you don't need this additional freeze. You are freezing enemy all the time. So yeah, I might try the battle again with this LMB and with the Stormy Sea 2 set and try to see, is it better? I doubt. Hmm, 22 seconds, it's even longer. So yeah, as you can see. But it's nice to have all the phantoms doing beam today. Let's talk about ultimate. Well, the good thing is I do not need to show you guys again, because you just in the previous 2 battles you already see how Icy Aura works. It's shooting out a lot of ice tornadoes and freeze the enemy, so it's really good. It does its job really well, and have a high chance to freeze the enemy, especially in early game when you, let's say you're using a special skill build like this. And yeah, problem is you cannot freeze the enemies to trigger this, but if you have combat expertise, in my case combat expertise where it is, yeah, water wood, yeah, you can use this ultimate and it's quite nice to freeze the enemy. But in other way, it is one of the ultimate which have the highest damage. So usually when I'm playing water, I am using this ultimate. It is really good. But yeah, it is. I don't know what else to say, because just apart from it is quite good. It frees enemy, deals a lot of damage. Now the other ultimate, I will not show it again because I've already showcased this in the ultimate skill guide, the second part 2. This one will only work if you have Energ Pond. Even if you have combat expertise, and when you cast it directly, it won't do anything. You have to generate energy pond by using a charge skill, and then get its dry pond, and then use this ultimate to basically make the entire region as a giant energy pond, and deals a very small damage. So I don't really see any reason to use this. Okay, I'm still going to use this and showcase this, and you can see that the big, very light blue thing on the ground, that is the ultimate effect. And even with this ultimate, you can still have energy pond. And yeah, to be honest, I think this time I'm more luckier because I can see a lot more damage from the Icy Aura. Is it? Okay, I take back my word. Apparently, you got almost the same speed when you're using ICI and this. But I don't think it's because this thing gives you more damage. Instead, I think it's just because there's no those icy tornadoes on the ground to drag down the performance of my computer. So in a way that all the icy aura from myself and from my phantoms are doing more damage. So once you reduce your cooldown to a certain extreme in this game, and it's somehow really depending on your performance of your PC. Because if there are too many things that are doing damage at the same time, it ignores some of them. So yeah, in those cases you might actually want to reduce the things. For example, you might not have Tiger Spirit Dragon Soul, even though it's really good in early game. But maybe without this thing you might perform better because this thing itself is not providing a lot of damage in end game compared to things like Icy Aura itself. So if things start to drag your performance down, try to reduce stuff. And yeah, I don't think this thing. I still don't think this thing gives you that much damage, but it does helps you to jumping around faster because you have energy pond everywhere, and which means you have a shorter recharge time. However, if you already have the energy gathering elixir, that's not a problem from the beginning. So yeah. Alright, let's think about is there anything else we haven't talked about. We talked about Tiger Spirit Dragon Soul, good in early game, maybe not good in late game. Murderous Rise in general good, just like Conceal Nirvana in general good. I know you are freezing enemy all the time, why do you still need this? There was always some chance that you facing problems and just get this thing is good. Similarly, Blood Power 1, good all the time, you always want it. And as I mentioned before, Spirit Fusion works with charter skills, so it's good, not only good, but also because you have no MP problem. If you are the one build who have no MP problem. In general, I don't like Spirit Fusion because you are using the same amount of energy, but only dealing 30% damage. It's not good. You are losing too much energy, but then you have no energy problem. So use Spirit Fusion. It's good. And yeah, of course, combat expertise is nice to have, even though certain ultimate doesn't really work even with it. And finally, what else was there? Oh yeah, deeper tail footwork. If you are using the Icy Aura thing, of course you are using a sword, Divine Power, which means you have 80% of damage reduction in the 2 seconds after using motion skill, and your motion skill cooldown is definitely less than 2 seconds. So that is already good, but then deeper tail footwork make it even better. So now you become 90% damage reduction. 90 doesn't sound that much bigger than 80, but it actually make your 2x tankier. Think about it, you understand. So yeah, and rule field is the same thing. You want to use 3 swords, 3 fists as you wish. And we talked about, we talked about this soul, but we haven't talked about this thing yet. Of course, rock is in generally good as long as you won't use your special skill. And I know special skills, if you have sword, divine power, and with very near zero cooldown of motion skill, you have already near zero cooldown. But there are always cases your Icy Aura didn't hit enemy, then a rock will still help you to reduce your special skill cooldown, and which was really good. Another good choice for this is actually Peacock, because Peacock gives you a lot of damage. And as water build, sometimes you do feel like you lack damage. But every time if you have Peacock, every time you use your ultimate, for example, in this case, which is, for example, you're using ICI, enemy is frozen, then you jump to the enemy with your motion skill, you do a lot of damage with the Peacock's ethereal power as well. So I think Peacock and Rock both are pretty good choices. And I think that will be everything. I think we covered everything about water build, and this video is again getting pretty long. I know I talk a lot, but hopefully you guys get the whole idea about water build. It's in generally really good. You freeze the enemy all the time, you got infinite MP. I know I'm talking about this all the time, but if you're using the correct builds like Versal Icicle and Frostbrand, you got both of them. And motion skill, gives you MP recovery. The mind skill part, I think like none of them, all the three special ones are that great. So while you are in early, middle, late game, you don't have to use water, mastery. You can use sword one to reduce the cooldown of motion skill even more. You don't need to use water security menu. You can use the fire one and combine with fire motion, fire ultimate to make your damage higher, which is actually quite helpful. I really recommend you to do that. And similarly, water divine power doesn't not really help that much. Sword one, fist one, both helps more. I'm using water secret menu and water mastery because I have to use the set effect, Agile Dragon, because at the end game, like Transcendent end game, when you can use set, Agile Dragon does improve your thing a lot, and it is one of the best builds in the end game because it's like a water sword. I mean, I think that this one word itself already tells you how good it is. So that will be everything. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. I do not know when will be the next time because we only have one last complete build guide left, which is wind build. Okay, see you next time.